I'm Scott Al Miller. This is my life living in Nicaragua. Today we're going to be answering a high priority question from Beyond Bounds Life about bringing several families and a teacher down for an extended stay here in Central America. And they're wondering where they should be looking and what decisions they should be making right away to be able to get their plans done and get underway. We love hearing about people coming to visit us here in Nicaragua, so we're going to be looking into their question and answering that right away. This is one that came in this morning, and we're going to have it out today for them right after the bump. All right, moving on in our list of items that they need. A good local culture for our school to tap into, such as cooking classes, soccer games on the beach, and etc. Okay, so this is Nicaragua. You're not going to find a ton of soccer. It does get played, but it's not anything like you're imagining. In most of Latin America, here it's going to be a lot more things like baseball and volleyball, but certainly sports and things like that. I know these are just examples. Now, cooking classes, I don't know anywhere in Nicaragua. I'm pretty confident that San Juan del Sur and Granada have something, but formal cooking classes are not a normal thing. This is not like Italy or say Argentina, where I would expect those to be like just on offer and you could just schedule. But finding someone locally that would be absolutely willing to teach local cuisine and cooking, or either in their home or like at a restaurant, I can't imagine it would be difficult at all. I know as a restaurant owner, like it's probably not hard to find, especially ones that are not open all the time, to be like, hey, can we pay a little bit and have the cook come in like 2 hours early and show how they prepare a couple local dishes and talk about that, and maybe have a translator because very few cooks are going to speak English. That's probably really easy to do. It'll just be on the informal side or whatever. Now, this combines with the soccer games on the beach and saying easy access to the outdoors for afternoon surfing beginning to intermediate waves. And then a few other things we're going to get to. Okay, so surfing. Of possible places that you're going to go for surfing, so the entire Nicaraguan coast on the Pacific is full of surfing opportunities. There's very few spots where you can't surf in Nicaragua. One of them, the primary one, is San Juan del Sur, because it is a bay. It's a protected bay. Now, of course, once you get out of San Juan del Sur, there's surfing right there. But in San Juan del Sur, a lot of people think they're going to get like, oh, that's the surf center, right? No, it's the one non-surf place. That's one of the reasons it's such a popular tourist destination. Tourists typically don't want surf waves. They want bays where they can just wander into the water and be super serene and beautiful and quiet. That's what people like most of the time. Surfers don't like that. So Nicaragua leans much more towards what surfers like than normal tourists, with the exception of San Juan del Sur. So in this particular case, that may not be the best of choices, but you have an awful lot throughout Nicaragua. However, that being said, the point here that's really important, and again, the reason that we're mentioning León is the city you should be in, or the region you should be in, is that León is the only city with nearby beaches. All the other beaches, you'd be looking at being living in a beach community instead of being in a city with all the normal Nicaraguan culture and then going to the beach in the afternoon. León is the only city in the country where its main beaches are actually part of the metro area. They are outside the city. It's about 20 minutes from the city center, about 12 minutes from the city limits out to the beaches. But that's really not bad, especially if you have your own car. But if you have students and they're comfortable taking the city bus, which is a chicken bus in this particular case, there's from anywhere in the city you can take a municipal bus, exactly like we showed on the show yesterday, right? We showed it yesterday, and then about a week ago we showed the city buses. They're clean, very safe, bright, very easy once you know the route. And of course, wherever you're renting, they'll tell you the routes. They'll know, right, how to get to Marcadito in Sutiaba. Take a bus from anywhere in the city, or if you're staying in the Sutiaba area, maybe you can walk to Marcadito. For example, if you were to stay in San Mateo, which is a neighborhood of Sutiaba that's really close to the bus station, just south of the Colegio Calasanz, that region would be fantastic if somehow you were able to find enough places there. And then you could walk to the Marcadito, where you can pick up the bus for like 25 cents and go to the beach. Then you wouldn't need to use the cars, and you could go to the beach anytime you wanted. This is the only city that's like that. Everywhere else, you're going to have some limitation. Chinandega has access to the beach, but it's not a surf beach. It's the port, so you'd be going to see the cargo ships being unloaded, which is interesting, but it's farther away. It's more like 30 to 40 minutes, and it's not really a beach like you would hang out at. There's a little bit. It's a nice town. I've done some videos on it. Like it's a cool little place. That's Corinto, but it's not what you're looking for. Nowhere else even comes close. Managua to its beaches is over an hour, sometimes two, even Rivas. So the thing about Nicaragua, and we touch on this a bit, but we don't really dig into it too often. The culture of Nicaragua, if you're coming down to learn about Central America and Nicaraguan culture, you don't really want to be on the beach because Central American culture doesn't take place on the beach, not in traditional Central American culture. The place where that does take place is on the Caribbean coast, on the Mosquito Coast. Those are the Creole areas where it's a completely different culture, a completely different history. And yes, that's part of Central America, but it's Caribbean Central America. And they identify as part of the Caribbean zone rather than the Central American zone, or what you think of as the Central American zone. Of course, there's the cultural Central America, which is kind of what we're thinking of culturally Nicaragua. And then there is the Central American zones that are part of the Caribbean, like Belize and the Mosquito Coast. Of course, they are also part of Central America. In no way saying that they're not. I have heard that claim. That is not true. They are absolutely part of Central America. But the culture that you're thinking of, the ability to get into that, like that's going to be, if it's Mosquito, Atlantic coast, if it's Nicaraguan traditional, Central American traditional, it's going to be inland. And so if you go to the Pacific coast, what you're getting is either affluent Nicaraguans who have invested in the beach as a more recent thing. That is a new cultural thing that's only been happening for a couple generations. So it's still relatively rare. A lot of Nicaraguans go to the beach for vacations and stuff, but it is a new thing. And it is still only a portion of the population, and it's still very much we live here, and once a year, twice a year, we head out to the beach because it's something different and interesting, and it's very cheap. It's an easy way to go out and do something very different, so it's popular for that. Mostly what you get at the beach is either very affluent Nicaraguans who are able to afford party houses on the beach, or are retired and are able to live out there and they just really like it. You get that. Or a lot of expats. Now, some places have a good mix, and you really aren't like completely swarmed by expats. That's fantastic. And here, Ponaloya and Las Penitas are pretty good for that because they're so close to the city. But if you get away from Leon, those beaches tend to skew much more heavily, pretty quickly, towards expats. There's exceptions. Pochumil, for example, still leans mostly towards Nicaraguans because it's part of the Managua zone. So it really leans towards affluent Managuans who are going to be heading out there for the weekend, whereas Las Penitas is a little bit more Leonesa, who are going out more or less any time because it's so close. So it's just a different culture. But to be able to do afternoons on the beach and still have real city culture of Nicaragua, Leon is your only reasonable option. So it kind of just rules it out. Here in both Ponaloya and Las Penitas, there is surfing, but really Las Penitas is where you will do your surfing. Ponaloya is much less accessible. There's also, educational opportunities in the Las Penitas area, such as going to the Juan Venado Island and estuary tours and going to see the wildlife there and how the estuary lives. You can just take private boats out and go and do that stuff. And of course, from here, if you want to see more beaches, Leon is one of many decent launching points for a broader area of beaches. Probably San Juan del Sur and Rivas are the best for, like, you want to see 20 different beaches. Yeah, they probably got us there. But if you want to see a handful of very different beaches, Leon is a pretty good option with its 2 city beaches. And then if you want to go to Corinto, it's not that far to see the big port, and that's kind of interesting. But to the south, we have places like Tesoro and Salinas Grandes if you want to see very remote beaches that are salt production area. Completely different vibe than you're going to find on normal beaches. Go south of that, you've got the famous beach loop with places like Transito, the really famous surfing beach, Valero, which is a brand new, artificially constructed, massive expat feeling community, but targeted at Nicaraguans, which is super interesting. Ultra modern construction, brand new resort style living for Nicaraguans. Love it. Puerto Sandino and Miramar, which is the place where they bring in it's some nice beaches, beautiful areas. It's actually a sizable population with a major port that handles the fuel coming in for the country. So the big fuel ships are sitting off at sea. You can go see a bunch of that all within Leon. You're not doing a big drive. You can just take your cars and go do an afternoon trip and see all that stuff. So from a beach in the afternoon perspective, absolutely nothing's going to come close to Leon. And being a little bit on the west side of Leon could lend itself towards an easier time getting out there. Now, access to jungle and volcanoes. We need to be a little bit clear here. The jungle starts east of Matagalpa. That is many hours away from anything else. So when you're talking about being able to go to the beach in the afternoons, the jungle can never be close. It doesn't matter where you are in the country, the jungle isn't close to the beach. There's areas where you get a lot of trees and a lot of wild area. It's not really the jungle. The reserve is far away. It just is. Populated Nicaragua is a pretty big area with a large population, and the serious jungle is quite some distance. So anytime you're going to go see the jungle, which is probably just going to be one trip during your time here, that's going to have to be a very special trip unless everything else adjusts to make the jungle accessible, which probably doesn't make sense. That's one spot where Costa Rica is a little bit different, that the jungle is a little bit more mixed into closer to major population areas. So going from places you are likely to be hanging out to the jungle, even though the jungle is much smaller there, it's part of the same jungle, right? Them and us and Honduras, it's one continuous jungle system with the major part of it here in Nicaragua. I almost said portion, then I said part, and it all just kind of blended together. And so Costa Rica has an advantage in how easy it is to get to the jungle and to the beach in, say, the same afternoon, but many fewer volcanoes, a lot fewer volcano options here in Nicaragua. So typically, if this was a discussion at a different time, we would be saying, oh, you got to go check out Masaya. But Masaya is currently closed because it's a little bit dangerous. They had a little bit of a collapse, and they need to make sure it's safe. So it's a constantly erupting volcano. It is still erupting, and it's very safe in the general sense of things. Is it safe to walk directly up to the edge? No, they feel like it's a little bit too precarious right at the moment. Some things have happened. Don't stand at the edge like an idiot. So they've closed that park. Otherwise, I'd say you got to go check that out. But now you can't. But the area that does have the volcanoes, so you can go do volcano tours. Okay, most of Nicaragua actually has this, as does Guatemala and Costa Rica, for example. Nicaragua may have some of the best. Guatemala comes in probably first, but if not, then it's second. But the two of Nicaragua and Guatemala are the go see the volcano capitals. But within Nicaragua, your best bet is really León. And the reason for this is because there's no volcano super close to the city, like it is in Chinandega, but the one in Chinandega is active and people really don't climb it. Like, we've definitely been here where evacuations had to take place, and we just had an evacuation down on Ometepe because Concepcion erupted just last week. Now, everybody's fine, but I don't know how much you're going to be able to do on Ometepe. I have friends who are heading down there any day. We're going to get a report of what things are like on the other island, on the non-Concepcion side. We call it the two islands, but it's one island, but it's two volcanoes and two circles, and they just kind of conjoined. Very confusing if you haven't seen a map. Anyway, they're going to be on the southeastern island that is not with Concepcion, and we'll get a report of exactly how impacted they are, which could be it's a little bit dusty or a lot of things are closed. We don't know. But I don't know that you want to be climbing like Concepcion right now because it just erupted, so it's in an unstable state. Here in the León area, we have the big collection of nearby reasonably dormant volcanoes, meaning that they're either not expected to erupt any day or have gone dormant completely. So you have ones that you're able to do like boarding on, like volcano boarding, where you're surfing down the thing. That's Cerro Negro. That's super famous for that. That, of course, is not dormant. That's what makes it good for that. It constantly throws up lava. I mean, like constantly, like, I don't know, every 30 years or something. But it has active enough that you have that pumice to actually slide down. It's made from lava, right? And so that's super popular. So if you have a group from school, you're almost certainly going to want to do that. So that's one piece. And there's nowhere else you're going to do that. You're going to come to León from anywhere to do that on Cerro Negro. But if you want to do volcano climbs and explore the volcano area, then León has the most within the region. Now, Granada's got a fantastic one to climb. Ometepe's got a fantastic one to climb. You can climb them in Chinandega. You can basically everywhere's got a volcano. It's Nicaragua. But León is known as the volcano destination within the country, so you'll be able to do many volcano activities from here without too much of a problem, especially with a car. Also, the hot springs in San Jacinto, which is part of the volcanic system, which is where there's lava magma directly underground, and it's heating water, and that steam is coming up through and boiling the mud. That is a really cool afternoon trip that you can do from León. It's in the León zone. You can go do that. Other outside the city activities beyond, of course, the city, you can look up. It's got, you know, the normal things. But we have the biggest museum in Central America. So at least one of your days, you got to take your school trip to the art museum. That's fantastic. We have the Museum of the Revolution. We have the Museum of Myths and Legends. Those three are probably the three you want to do in León. Then we have, there is in Chinandega a museum of regional León history. And you may say, why is a Leon History Museum in Chinandega? Because Chinandega was only recently split off. Its northern Leon was cut off from southern Leon and got named Chinandega. But traditionally, the two together were Leon, which is why Leon sees Chinandega as a satellite community rather than its own thing, even though technically it's its own department. But Leon is the older one, the bigger one. But that museum is up in Chinandega, and it's quite nice. Very small, but an interesting, like, different look at museums in Nicaragua. The ones here in Leon tend to be quite old. Also in the Leon area is Puerto Mombotumbo, which is the old Port of Leon from long ago. And so now it's just a beach. It's a little beach on Lago Managua. It's got a few restaurants. It's more of a point of interest that it used to be something, and on its own you probably wouldn't go there. But directly next to it is Leon Vieja, which is the old city of Leon from before the volcano buried it. So it's like our own Pompeii here in Nicaragua, but it was already vacated before the volcano erupted. So no one died in the eruption. No one that I know of died in the eruption. It's not like a population was wiped out. They realized that Pompeii was going to happen to them, and they got out and everyone was saved. But the city was buried in lava flow, and they're digging it out currently. And it's a very important museum in the region, and certainly a great afternoon to go do that. Then when you're done, stop by, because it's like on the way out. It's like you can't miss it. Puerto Mombotumbo is right there. Stop and do dinner there, enjoy the beach a little bit, and it makes for an awesome outing. I have a video from almost exactly a year ago. It may actually be a year ago within a day or two. Don't be surprised if you see that pop up in the recommendations at the end, where we went there and showed it, and it's very cool. It was one of the very first places that I filmed with the 360 camera, and got some different shots there. So which gives me a little bit of a, in my own mind, how long have I had this equipment? Oh my gosh, I was filming with that a year ago. Wow, it's been around. Okay, so from that perspective of things to do, Leon is pretty good. Now, of course, if there was different activities you wanted to do, generally most people lean towards Granada for things to do, and it is fantastic as well. But for the things you're looking at specifically, Leon is, I think, a slam dunk in every possible way, except for the jungle thing. Now, you said you'll have cars. Great. Leon is kind of isolated, so getting to like a lot of those things you want to do, cars are handy, but you can pretty much do almost everything by public transportation should you want to. We would need 7 apartments or houses for under $1,500 a month. So do that math. That is around $210 per unit. Now, you didn't say how big those are going to be, but you mentioned apartments, so I'm going to assume like you mean like a 2-bedroom small apartment, not something huge, or it would be, mentioned differently. It's going to be a little bit tough. But that's definitely within the price range that is feasible here to do for each apartment. At 200, basically the lowest end reasonably you can get into, but these are unfurnished. It's going to be 145. So that's going to be the biggest challenge, is that you're going to be looking at places that are unfurnished, and normally at 6 months leases. So at 200 a month, it's going to be really, really, really hard. I'm not quite sure how you can do that anywhere. Especially for finding 7 units nearby that are all going to be furnished enough to be able to use. I think you may have to work out a deal with a hostel, where you can get in and take a huge portion of the hostel. And then you'll have the advantage of being all in one place. So $1,500 for 7 places is all but impossible, because just that's at the low end of rentals for standard apartments and houses on long-term rentals that are unfurnished, without power, without internet and all that. Now, if you're talking $1,500 per unit, okay, then you're in good shape, right? That should be no problem at all. You can get into a number of different places for that, and it won't be too much of a problem, right? Like that'll be quite doable. Now, the biggest challenge, so that's kind of your, if you're thinking 1,500 total for 7, I don't know how we're going to do that. Plausible? Yes. Easy? No, not at all. From a $1,500 per unit, easy. From a pricing perspective. Now, finding 7 that are somewhat near each other, that will be a challenge. Leon is not the kind of place that has large complexes full of places to rent. So it's going to be a matter of hunting around the city and putting 7 places together. This is where a Granada or a Managua will be easier, simply because they are much larger rental markets. Even in both of those, it's going to be challenging. And in fact, you may find that it's more challenging in Managua, not because there aren't as many places available, but because the city is so large compared to the others that finding 7 might be easy, but they could be even physically about the same distance, but very hard to get between them. Whereas in a Leon or Granada, Even if you're spread out all over the city, you are relatively close. Like, it's easy to get from, say, you had one in Guadalupe, one in Fatima, one in Sutiaba, one in El Centro, one in Calvario. Well, yeah, if you have a car, they're all just 5 minutes from each other, so that's relatively close. But if you're in Managua and you had ones that are in neighboring barrios or all in the same barrio, you may find that they're more than 5 minutes between them anyway. And in Leon or Granada, you're going to find that it's very easy to walk around most of the city. So as long as you're anywhere near something kind of central, then you'll have an option for everybody to walk places. Maybe not walk to each other, but at least all walk to the center or walk to Mercadito to do things together. Whereas in Managua, realistically, people aren't going to walk around. I'm the exception here, not the rule by any measure. So that could be a significant factor. I had to move the camera because she looked at me like, I'm sitting here all pretty waiting to be on the show. Why is the camera not pointed at me? So I moved the camera. Okay, so that pretty much covers the items that were mentioned. And of course, you're in a big hurry and you want to make a decision quickly. So I think without any doubt, Leon is the city in Nicaragua you need to be looking at, and I think that it's going to have the one challenge. This is where a Panama and certainly a Guatemala are going to have a lot more rentals that you can get a lot more easily, but at much higher cost, and I think every other aspect is going to be less, like your ability to get to volcanoes, your ability to get to surfing, if at all those things are going to be super tough. Atalan doesn't have those things, whereas if you are in Leon, everything's easy except for finding the apartments. In my opinion, Leon is just a slam dunk here. It's going to be so perfect for you, and your challenge is just finding the right places to live in. So you know your families, I assume, and you're going to need to be a little bit flexible. That's going to be the biggest thing. You've got options such as renting a bigger place. You may be able to find a house that's quite large. For example, mine's a rarity, but we have a 9-bedroom. You could potentially have 2 or 3 families in something like this and just have them spread out in different parts of the house. That's reasonable. Those kinds of options exist. You may be able to find an apartment building. I know of one in San Mateo. It's rented. As far as I know, it's full, but it has 4 units together. You might be able to find another one like that is able to rent out the entire place, but in most of those cases, they're unfurnished. Furnished apartments are very rare. So Airbnb may be your best choice to get started, and certainly stay in contact. Shoot me an email, and I'm happy to discuss what areas are good, how close things are to each other, what kind of things to look for, where to maybe start looking. But it is going to be a challenge. Like, if I had to do this today, I don't know exactly where I'd start, but the sooner you start, the sooner you'll have answers. But definitely consider being pretty flexible and saying, okay, I can't necessarily have 7 identical apartments that are all just 1 block from each other, but maybe I can, come up with something by being creative and looking at different types of housing, whether it's hostels or hotels, taking long-term rentals, taking multiple apartments together, one single larger house that's going to handle things. And I have to step away because my dog just hurt her paw while being an absolute crazy dog and trying to climb a tree. Okay, she's going to be okay, but she cut up her paw a bit because she tried climbing a palm tree and she ripped the tree apart and ripped up her paw. But she's okay, just getting cut. Dumb dog things. All right, so let me know, for all of you who have your questions and stuff, get down there in the comment area and leave your comments. Just say hello, if nothing else. But certainly, if you have questions, absolutely ask them. I love being able to answer questions on the show. If you have comments or ideas for this troop that is coming down and what you think may be good, or if you have any leads on where apartments that would be, I'm sure they need furnished with good internet, like that's stuff they're going to need to know. Just get down there, let us know. And of course, if you'd like to send in a video question, that would be fantastic. All the instructions on how to record it, how to send it to me, all in the description. And as always, if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller. That comes directly to me and helps make all of this possible, and I really appreciate all the support. I've had a very good couple of weeks. We've seen some very solid growth and just engagement on the show. It's been amazing. Some of it negative, but even negative engagement is really positive as long as you have a positive outlook on life. And I do want to say this is super cool for me. I did hop over. I've been testing out vidIQ. For those who are wondering, we're turning it down. We gave it an audition. It's an expensive tool for what it does, and we found that while there was a few pieces of it that were interesting and kind of worked. Most of it produced gibberish, and it just didn't have a lot of value for us. I could see in a year trying it out again, and maybe they'll make some advances. But right now, it uses like AI technology, and it's as dumb as could be. It might as well be a random gibberish generator for what it gives us. So not valuable for this type of show in any way, unfortunately, but it was interesting to take a look. But one of the things I was able to do with it is pump in a bunch of shows that I consider, you know, shows that I really look up to, people, content creators that I really respect. Not in the Nicaragua space. Those guys, we all know each other. We're tracking each other pretty closely anyway. But in the broader sense, and just YouTubers that I like on completely unrelated things, mostly around like editors and people who give recommendations on the software that I do, but people have very popular channels, and got to look at their channels and realize that we have caught up. We may not be as big yet, but we're like months away from passing a lot of those channels. And that just blows my mind how much engagement we have on this show, what a wonderful audience we have, and only 2 years in, those shows are much older, right, and really polished, and it's just been amazing, the whole interaction with the audience we have here, and how interested people are in what we're doing. This is just, thank you so much. Again, I know I say this a lot, but thank you to you guys, because you make all this possible. And I've been soft invited. It's at arm's length, but on Thursday, which is only 2 days from when you're watching this, in theory, I've been invited to do a roundtable. I don't know if it's live. I don't know what the deal is, but a Latin American relocation show has reached out and wants me to do a roundtable discussion, which sounds an awful lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting to do that, and I will certainly have shorts that announce whatever's going on for that. And if you watched yesterday's show or one a while ago, or sometimes you see him singing on Tuesdays, Camilo, who was with me on the bus yesterday, he's the one that interviewed me. If you watch the Facebook thing, he actually has a biopic on him on Channel 4 here in Nicaragua, I believe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday. So coming up in a few days, you can see him on television. I don't know how much of it's him on television. It's a show about him on television. So he's got his own biography TV show, which we've known was coming out, but we didn't have a schedule, and we just found out that it's this weekend. All right, that is it for the day. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or family member about the show, take a link of the show and pop it onto your social media feeds, wherever it is that you hang out online, and I will see all of you tomorrow. And don't forget your homework, which is look at the 4 videos that are popping up on the screen and give one of them a click. And if you don't see them, then that's my fault. I'm sorry, but go over onto the right or whatever when the recommendations pop up from YouTube and click on another one of my shows, maybe Nicaragua 360, maybe this vlog.